Happy Monday, everyone. Got the Starbucks here. Don't tell Danny Stimson. He may not like that. Also, you're getting a selfie version of the intro video today because my laptop broke. So don't know how this will come through in the actual video. Hopefully it'll format okay. But I got another devotional for you this morning on Psalm 27. We're just going to keep going through it. So hope it helps start your week off well. We'll have another one for you later in the week. All right, have a great day. We'll see you later on. Enjoy the devotional.
Psalm 27 today. We're going to look at verse 5. One of the reasons I love the Bible is how it speaks so clearly to our condition and our situation. Look what David's going to talk about today. He's going to talk about the day of trouble. All right, are we going through a day of trouble right now in coronavirus season? Yes, we are. And it affects all of us differently. But the reality is this: we each have a decision on how we can respond. There's so many common ways to try to deal with the day of trouble. One is we freak out. We can completely freak out because the day of trouble. Another one is we try to deny it. So we try to act like, no, it's really not a day of trouble. Everything's fine. Let's just kind of tune it out. On top of that, we can try to distract ourselves from it. So maybe we just try to seek out a lot of entertainment or things like that just to try to distract ourselves, take ourselves away from the day of trouble. The problem is the day of trouble is still there when we get back. Right? Another thing, you see this a lot, is maybe we try to control the day of trouble. We try to control everything, come up with our game plan. Not that it's bad to try to be wise and make good decisions, but a lot of times we try to make ourselves feel better by trying to control all the details. And the reality is this: we're not in control. And what David's going to do today is going to say there's actually a better thing to do in seasons of uncertainty and in the day of trouble. And what we do is he's going to say it is a key to make sure you find the right shelter, to make sure you find the right tent to be hidden in. Okay, watch what David does here in verse 5. He starts with God. He says, look at God. Let's look at what he does for us when we're in the day of trouble. Let's not freak out. Let's not deny it. Let's not try to distract ourselves from it. Let's not try to control it. Let's turn to God and let's see what he does. And look at what he does. God hides me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He conceals me under the cover of his tent, and he will lift me high upon a rock. All right, so these are the things that God does for us in the day of trouble. Now, when you look at those words, hide and conceal, they basically mean the same thing, and it can be used like this. If you were to have a lot of treasure, this is supposed to be gold, by the way. So you have a ton of treasure, right? What you would do is you would hide that treasure. You would try to conceal it and hide it so that you can protect it from forces that are outside of it, someone stealing it, it getting lost or whatever. You want to hide and conceal things of value. What David's saying is that God sees us with value. He loves us and he delights in his people. So he hides us and conceals us in his shelter in the day of trouble. Okay, not only that, but God lifts us high upon a rock. So he takes us and he puts us in a place that we cannot go on our own when we're in the day of trouble. Okay, now here's why all of that is so encouraging and why it matters. Because like I said earlier, each of us, when we're in the day of trouble and when we're in a season of uncertainty, all right, we have a choice of what we want to do with that. There's so many places that we can go, but the reality is this, is that there is only one thing that is certain. There is only one shelter that is certain. So there is only one place that is worth running to. And here's the truth of Christianity. Christian hope does not come from denying reality or distracting ourselves from reality. No, where Christian hope is found is having a shelter in the midst of reality wherever we are, whatever we're going through. And that's what David is experiencing in Psalm 27, is that in Psalm 27, verse 4, he says that God is his true delight. And in verse 5, he notices that God is his true shelter. Now, if you are out in a rainstorm, we've talked about this idea before, right? If you're out in a rainstorm and it's coming down really hard, and maybe you've had this happen, if you run out with a little umbrella, all right, that umbrella is going to get destroyed by the rain and you're going to get soaking wet anyway. You can't rely on a small umbrella in a huge rainstorm. No, like we've been talking about, you have to have a shelter that's bigger than the thing that's going on around you. The shelter has to be bigger than the storm. The shelter has to be bigger than the storm. What you hide in has to be bigger than the thing that you're afraid of. And what David is saying in verse 5 is that we have a God who is our shelter, who loves us, and who's all powerful. And he is a bigger shelter than all of the things that we could be afraid of in our days of trouble. Okay, one more thing. The gospel is the ultimate proof of this. Think about the words in this verse. On the cross, Jesus was not hidden in a shelter in his day of trouble. He was not concealed in a tent on his day of trouble. He was not lifted above on the day of trouble. No, he went through the ultimate day of trouble so that God could become our shelter forever. That's an amazing place to turn. So here's my encouragement for you for the next few days this week is when you are faced with the day of trouble and you're going to be tempted to freak out, to deny it, to distract yourself, or to control it, I want you to return to these verses, look at the cross, and be reminded that God, just like with David, is our true delight and he is our true shelter. That's the best place to turn today. We don't have to deny reality. We have a shelter in the midst of it. I hope that encourages you today. We'll be back again later in the week with another devotional from Psalm 27.